God can use what is seemingly so unrelated, so selfish, so impossible desire of yours for His own glory. And then let me just put you in perspective. What is going on in a 17-year-old Chinese boy's head? And then let me tell you this, it's not much of a difference between the Chinese boy versus the American boy. You're thinking about games, you're thinking about girls, you're thinking about maybe sports if you played any sports, or you're thinking about your scores, maybe you have a lower GPA, which I did. Not much of an adult's thoughts. Not even, there's no thoughts of God, okay? And I grew up in a family where there's no belief of God's existence. So what made me decide that I want to go to America, and then what let me become a Christian that follows Jesus? And I can tell you this, I knew that at that young age of 17, I was going to live the same life as my peers, or just going to go to a so-so college and then get an ordinary degree and then work for the rest of my life and maybe eventually get married and have a family. But in this meantime, play a lot of video games and then maybe do a lot of dumb things. And then that was going to be my path if I didn't decide to come to America. And then let me just tell you, my mom has been instrumental in my decision and in my life as a huge support. Because not every family has the privilege of sending their kids across the globe to another country, to a foreign place where you don't know the language, where you have to learn the culture all over again. And not everybody has a desire. So why did God place that in my head when I was 17? And I know at the time I was in a relationship, and then that was part of the driving forces of why I want to get away from where I lived. And it was toxic. It was not going to work out. And most importantly, I knew that wasn't the right person. But my decision wasn't the most responsible way, but I wanted to get away from that. And on top of that, the American dream on the big movie TV screen just seems so real and is so achievable. You know, having a house with a backyard and doing barbecue with a dog, a wife, couple of kids running around. And I'm also talking about a boy that was hugely into the culture of basketball, hugely deeply in love with NBA and American girls, essentially, which there's nothing wrong inherently with that. But that was my driving force of coming to America, right? I wanted to learn, I wanted to see, I wanted to experience the American life and possibly live the American dream. And not after too long after I got here in America, my first stop was Seattle, right? And then that's where I first heard the gospel being preached. And for me, that wasn't my focus at all. But what was interesting about the group, the organization that was behind this idea, they understood what my mindset was. They understood what my needs were, and then they met where I was. And then if you haven't experienced this as someone who is outside of the culture coming into another one, you will feel alone. You feel alone, and then you feel like you want to stay away from everybody. And it's hard for you to make friends. It's hard for you to learn a language. If nobody breaks down the culture for you, it'll be extremely hard for you to be a part of this culture. But they did the opposite. They extended their hands to welcome me. And then this is the organization called International Student Incorporated. Their goal was to help international students like me who is new to the culture get familiarized. Most importantly, know Jesus at the end of the day. So I made so many friends and so many unforgettable relationships in that organization. People who I still call my friends and still call my mentors till this day. To put into perspective, that was 2018, 19. You know, that was probably the pivotal point of my life. I had a goal. I wanted to live the American dream. I want to be a part of the American culture. But to be honest, I didn't know what I should do. I don't even know why I'm going to college. I don't know what degree I want to get. To be honest, I didn't have a drive to do anything like everybody else who had that drive, you know? So I was exploring. But God reached out to me through the art of photography. And I started picking up a camera. I started taking photos. Just so happened I started taking photos for the organization that I was part of. And I was taking photos of the events. And then I realized that was my source of expression. I can express myself through this art platform, photography. At the same time, I was serving my community that I didn't know. You know, I just learned. I was like a dry sponge. I just keep absorbing the knowledge of how to take great photos, how to serve others with this specific gift. I started taking photos for the church I was going. Obviously, I skipped a whole lot of details, but most importantly, God used my hobby, my desire of coming to America for something good, because I started serving my peers, people who were like me, people who came to America essentially looking for a better opportunity, but they didn't know Jesus. I was the vessel for God to reach out to them. I can connect with them because I know what they were going through. And I was able to share what God has done for me using the gift of photography. And then for me, nothing was more fulfilling than doing that. Nothing was more fulfilling than sitting down, having a conversation with someone who doesn't know Jesus, who can relate to me, my experience. And here we are. I'm making YouTube videos, playing games, sharing my testimony with you on the other side of the camera. I just want to let you know, it doesn't matter how impossible, how unrelated, how selfish you think your desire in your head might be. If you are willing, if you allow God to use that for His glory, then He will give you a path, which, like what He did to me, He gave me a path. Not, am I living my best life? Definitely not at this stage, but I'm past the season where I should be focusing on school or friendship building. That season, I'm grateful that God led me through that season. So I'm right now being married, working, doing my ministry, doing what actually I was called to do, making YouTube videos. I cannot do what I'm doing right now without God letting me through that stage, that season of my life.